So I feel like psilocybin in particular is very illuminating, right? It shows you your shadow parts, the unconscious parts, the parts of yourself that you tend to perhaps suppress and numb, resist even. And so it kind of illuminates all those things in a way that really helps you connect with yourself in a way that's more supportive from a mental toughness perspective. So you're really bringing all parts of yourself online in a way that's accepted. So it gives you a lot more confidence to move forward from a mental toughness perspective.
Well, let's talk. Most of us never learned how to train our brains, which is why most of us needlessly settle, struggle, and worse, suffer. My name is Chris Doris, and I want to make brain training mainstream. This is my series, Tough Talks, Conversations on Mental Toughness. I'm interviewing badasses from all walks of life on what mental toughness means to them and their unique approaches to strengthening their minds. Hey everyone, welcome back to Tough Talks, Conversations on Mental Toughness. I'm your host, Chris Doris, and before we get to our guest today, I want to take care of, as usual, our one housekeeping item, which is, if you're not getting notifications of these new podcast episodes or getting my Tuesday blog posts, or if you're not getting the daily dose mental toughness tips in 30 seconds or less sent to your mailbox at about 6 a.m. every day of the year, no matter where you are in the world, then let's address that issue, shall we, by going to christopherdoris.com/lists, L-I-S-T-S, christopherdoris.com/lists. Put your name, your email, click, and you get all the goodies. Now, I'm excited as hell today to share with you our guest, Cate Ritter. Cate is a licensed psilocybin facilitator and wellness coach. Cate is has done a lot of wild stuff, and one of the things is she studied with a shaman in the jungle for we'll find out how long. We'll get all the details from her, but it was a fascinating experience, to say the least. We'll let her describe it, and it was the inspiration for her creating this new, most current iteration of her vocation, which is using psychedelics for healing. And that, I don't think it's just healing, but it's also for maybe expansiveness, you know? She lives in Bend, Oregon, where psilocybin is legal now as a facilitated process, not recreationally. So we're going to dig deep on that. And then if you're thinking, like, why is this? Okay, so this is a mental toughness podcast. What's the connection here? I'm going to ask her to make the connection. But this is why I wanted to have this, is that, you know, mental toughness to me is not just about being tough. This whole podcast exists in part because of all the unnecessary struggle and suffering that we create for ourselves. And I believe that what Cate's doing with her life these days is all about helping to eliminate that unnecessary suffering, which is nothing short of beautiful, in my opinion. So, it's enough from me. Let's go find Cate and hear it all from her, the expert. Where are you, Cate? And there she is, founder, the one and only Cate Ritter. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing well, Chris. How are you?
It's the best damn day of my life, even though our Zoom keeps freezing. This is our third attempt. This is our fourth attempt, actually, third today.
Yeah.
And we'll get it done. So I'm glad to have you here. And let me open this up by bridging a gap that could be occurring in some of the viewers, listeners' minds on, okay, so what's the relationship here between, you know, mental toughness? The podcast is called Tough Talks, Conversations on Mental Toughness, and psilocybin or psychedelic journeys. What's the connection? And there is a connection, but I want you to articulate it. But first, I'll say my definition of mental toughness to remind folks what it means to me. Mental toughness is a superpower, right? Specifically, it's the ability to respond to all of life, not some of it, not most of it, but all of life, rapidly with grace and mastery, creative genius, and enthusiasm, so that we can get to the creation of excellence and the creation of joy faster and with least effort. So what does any of that have to do, or what does the use of psilocybin have in any way, anything to do with any of that?
That's a good question. So I feel like psilocybin in particular is very illuminating, right? It shows you your shadow parts, the unconscious parts, the parts of yourself that you tend to perhaps suppress and numb, resist even. And so it kind of illuminates all those things in a way that really helps you connect with yourself in a way that's more supportive from a mental toughness perspective. So you're really bringing all parts of yourself online in a way that's accepted. So it gives you a lot more confidence to move forward from a mental toughness perspective.
Well, let's talk about your experience, okay? Like, how did you even get into this? You are a licensed psilocybin facilitator and wellness coach. That's your current title. Okay.
Yeah,
So how did this even come about?
that's a good question. So
And
yeah,
two
I
in a
guess
row. I'm on a roll. Thank you.
I felt very stuck in my life. I felt like I had a great life. I felt like I had all the things that should make me happy, should make me feel fulfilled. Yet I just felt like there was something missing. Right? I didn't have quite the mental toughness, right? I was really struggling to kind of like a duck, on the surface they look real calm, and then underneath they're just like paddling like
Yeah.
crazy. And so I tried a lot of different modalities and different things, and nothing quite moved the needle like psychedelics. So my first psychedelic experience, I went off the deep end. I went to the jungle, did
Which jungle?
ayahuasca,
What jungle?
Peru, outside of Iquitos, Peru. I did a 2 week retreat
Hmm.
and had six ayahuasca experiences, and they were just completely mind-blowing, life-changing. Definitely helped me get very unstuck from a lot of different things, even things I didn't think that would help.
Well, you say, okay, so can we slow that part down a little bit? Because I can hear people's curiosities already. Well, it's mine too. So mind blowing. So tell us about these. So they're called experiences. They're not called trips.
Journeys, or in ayahuasca, they typically say ceremony. Uh,
Ceremony.
yeah, for mushrooms, there's ceremonies kind of in more traditional settings, but in Oregon, we typically call them journeys. Under the guidelines by the state, we call them administration sessions, where you're actually being administered
Okay,
the
got it.
psilocybin product.
Got it.
So there's different lingo that you can use for it, but
But
they
you
all kind of mean the same thing.
okay, all right. But there's different substances. So you mentioned ayahuasca,
Ayahuasca, yeah.
which is so you had six ayahuasca experiences
Yeah.
in
And
the
so
jungle.
those were so impactful. I literally was next to a guy who had been cured of cancer. I didn't even know that that was something out there. There was also, musicians there that, had drug addiction problems that, were clean after that. I never
Huh.
saw so many different issues from various people and all different kinds of people. And seeing them get results where I hadn't in kind of our Western typical model.
Yeah, that's pretty fascinating. So it's a substance that treats substance abuse or
Yeah.
addiction.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea how that works? Does anyone?
There's a lot of researchers working on that right now, but uh, basically, so psilocybin, I'll get kind of back to psilocybin,
Okay.
and I'll say that, just a little backstory too, that my experiences in the jungle were so profound that I literally decided to move to the jungle to facilitate ayahuasca. I
Wow.
was there for 3 months, did a 2 month curandero, or a shaman initiation training, where we're out in the remote jungle working with indigenous shamans, as well as other healers and things like that. But it was very challenging, because as transformative as the ayahuasca experiences were, it was also very traumatic to be in that type of environment where, there's mosquitoes. The first day of my training, I got chiggers. They were in my bed sheets. There's
Oh,
this teeny tiny little microscopic things that tend to like burrow under your
oh,
skin,
lovely.
burn, and they itch like crazy. And so, my first day of training, I had them up my front door, my back door, my armpits, like everything. They were over my whole body, and it
Oh my
was
goodness.
so uncomfortable. And the more you like itch them, the more they spread.
Holy.
So yeah, it was very uncomfortable. There was other things like another participant got a scorpion sting. One of my shaman's wives got malaria. So there's a lot of dangers that can
Yeah.
go into it, as well as the jungle can be a very chaotic environment, right? Like
Oh,
there could be up to 20 people in a ceremonial setting. They call it a maloka. So you've got, mosquitoes and bugs and all kinds of stuff, poisonous snakes, centipedes. Like you're just kind of
sign me up.
on alert a lot in the jungle. And so as transformative as I found those experiences, I also found them to be traumatic in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
Also, the facilitators aren't necessarily properly trained. Sometimes, people would be calling for help, myself included. No one would come. So it would kind of reinforce some of those things that you're trying to heal, especially if you're working on trauma or things like that.
Mm.
And so I moved back to Oregon, and luckily, there was some really cool things going on, including Measure 109, which allows for the legal use of psilocybin via a licensed facilitator in a licensed service center. So it's not that people are just going into dispensaries like cannabis and getting mushrooms and then going home. This is very much for therapeutic use, and it's a very comfortable, cozy set and setting. Some service centers are more clinical, some are more kind of like a living room, some have a blend of the two. And so that's just like a little background of why it's so important for me to honor this new model being implemented, because it is much safer in a lot of ways. And there's legal, guidelines there for a reason to help protect the participant as well, and make sure that you have the best experience possible, because these can be profoundly life-changing experiences under the right set and setting.
So who goes to get these?
Just about anyone, and but it's not for everyone. Like you have
Okay.
to be over age 21. You want
Mhm.
to make sure you don't have any mental health issues that could interfere with your process or negatively impact your experience, such as psychosis, bipolar 1 or 2, anything like that, or active like heart conditions,
Oh,
those kinds of things. So you'd want to check with a medical provider first. So it's not for everyone, but it can benefit just about anyone if they qualify or are eligible for services.
well, you say you might want to check with your medical provider first, but how educated are medical providers on this whole experience? Like, can they give sound advice when, yeah, you should go do that, or oh, you shouldn't do that?
Yeah, I have some psychedelic informed doctors that I recommend. So if someone comes to me and they have questions, but they're really interested in perhaps exploring more info about psilocybin, then I might have them schedule a session with the psychedelic informed doctor first before we proceed, just to make sure that it's going to be a safe and enjoyable experience for them.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you say and enjoyable.
Yeah.
So because you talked about the shadow,
Yeah.
is it always enjoyable?
Not always. No, it can be really challenging. But I find that almost the more challenging it is, the more beautiful it is as you come out the other side.
I hear
And
that.
it's nice because after you've had your first experience, you know what to expect.
Mm.
And so you really kind of roll up your sleeves the next time and go, okay, this is what I want to work on. And that might not be what psilocybin has in mind for you. Ultimately, you get what you need. Um,
Wow. Whoa. That's interesting. Let's slow that down. It's interesting because you're giving like its own personality here. Like a psilocybin might have something else in mind for you.
Yeah,
and you get what you need regardless of what you think you need. Am I hearing that properly?
correct. Yeah.
How fascinating. So it's like a window, a look into your soul. Can you describe it? Like, give us just some details of like, because it's, so what is it like? 'Cause if you're trying to describe to someone like a roller coaster ride, it's hard to do, right? But could you try?
Yeah, I mean, I can share some of my experiences. I'm
Yeah.
very sensitive and empathic, so they're a bit more unusual because I'm very open to psychedelic medicine in that sense. So my first above ground service center experience was one of the most profound experiences of my life, more so than over 40 ayahuasca ceremonies. Yeah, 40 ayahuasca ceremonies and psilocybin in a service center under the safe set and setting was more profound.
Where was that?
That was in Portland
Okay.
at Intertrek. Through my training program was through Intertrek, and then yeah, so
Inner Trek.
Intertrek.
That's a
Yeah,
cool name.
it is a cool name, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Let's hear about your inner Trek.
so basically, I'll give you a little breakdown too of how the process works. So you have, depending on the facilitator you work with or the service center, you have some prep sessions ahead of time that really helps cover any paperwork, get you prepared for the journey ahead. It gives you tips, things that you can help do, whether it be preparing with your diet or your mindset, whether it be maybe doing some meditation or breath work or yoga, something that resonates with you that really helps you begin to go inward and prepare for this journey, because it is a very inward journey, very different than, say, a recreational experience with mushrooms.
Okay.
And so you have your prep sessions, you have your journey or administration session. You also have some integration afterwards that's included in that. And so you arrive at the service center for your journey day. A service center representative brings you the psilocybin product, and it's really cool. It's all grown in by certified mycologists and provider manufacturers, I guess you would call it. And then it's all lab tested. So you get a product package similar to, say, cannabis, that tells you the psilocybin content, the psilocin content, the best by date, all of those little details and things like that as well. And you can have different options. I chose to have the whole fruiting body. So you get these cute little mushrooms that you get to go, oh, hi, you're my new friend. And you can have them with, a little bit of honey or chocolate or things like that if, you don't like the taste, because it's not necessarily a taste you crave for most people.
Okay.
And so it takes about, depending on the person, about 15 minutes to an hour for the effects to kick in. I can kind of start to feel it working through my body. Usually there's some temperature changes. I get really cold and then I might get hot. Things like that.
Are you just sitting in a room? Are you laying
Yeah,
down?
so you might have choose an individual experience. You might choose couples. You might choose a group. Mine was a group experience. They play music, which is incredible. It's kind of a second facilitator that really guides your journey. So the music's great too, because it helps release emotions. For me, as soon as the medicine came into effect, for me, I like to think of psilocybin as, it's not just a physical product that you ingest. There's also a spirit behind it. And yeah, I know it sounds a little strange.
Oh, sounds
But
cool.
to me, it's kind of this collective group of teachers that are there to guide you, like cosmic wisdom, in a sense of like, come on, let's go on this journey together. We're going to take you on a ride. And so for me, they were kind of like, hey, you're a conduit of joy for this world. And it was the coolest experience. I just became this kind of light source, this light being. And I became the music. And it was like I was on this beautiful ride. And so much of my life, I really struggled with control and perfectionism and overachieving and things like that. Those were kind of really ingrained in me in childhood. And so for me, the experience was so profound because I could feel and experience the difference between being one with this cosmic symphony and just that effortless flow versus me over here banging pots and pans trying to make things work, right? Like that's been my life of like, I'm doing this, I'm making it work. And then to feel the difference ever since that journey, it's been a lot more apparent when I start banging pots and pans and I'm like, wait a second, do I want to be doing this still? This doesn't seem very effective.
So it's not, so this experience is not just for people who are having troubles.
No, it could be for any reason. Some people like to just some people like to use it for creativity, innovative solutions with work. For others, it could be helpful for, the research shows it's helpful for depression, including treatment-resistant depression, anxiety, PTSD or PTS, obsessive compulsive disorder or OCD, substance abuse, sleep disorders, chronic pain, anorexia, and even cluster headaches. And there's even more research coming out with different conditions as well that it has the potential to support.
What do people Google? Like, what do you want to look up if you want to do some more research on your own on this?
Yeah, well, I have a great resource page too on my website, prismbend.com, PRISM. And also, there's great info on YouTube as well. Like I love anything from Robin Carhart Harris, Paul Stamets, Michael Pollan has a great Netflix series as well as a book, How to Change Your Mind. Episode 2 is all focused on psilocybin.
On Netflix.
On Netflix, yeah.
How to Change Your Mind?
Starting with that first. How to Change Your Mind, Michael Pollan. Yeah.
Okay. So where else? You're in Oregon.
Yes.
Where else in the world? Oh, is that why? Oh, very clever. Prism Bend.
Bend. Yeah.
That's where else in the world is psilocybin legalized?
I mean, you can do it in other countries. For example, you can go to Jamaica. There's been a retreat there for, I don't know, probably 10 years or more.
Oh.
Probably about 10,000 to do the retreat. So it's quite pricey and you do have to fly. So it's definitely more convenient, I would say, to do it in Oregon. And I personally like having some of the guidelines around it to make sure it's a safe set and setting for people as well. For a lot of people too, just going to a different country can be a bit challenging, especially if they're not feeling well or have a lot of things going on in their lives. It can kind of add to the intensity of the experience. So I personally say if it's easier and available, why not choose a beautiful place like Oregon?
Yeah. So is it? Yeah. Right. Is it legal in other states in the country?
Not yet. I'm
really?
actually
Oregon is the only state.
Yeah, Colorado has different guidelines, but for Oregon, as it's legal under basically licensed facilitated use in a licensed service center.
Got it. And what does it cost?
Yeah, so the range is different. I work on a sliding scale as well. So it could be anywhere from, like 2,000 to 3,500 from different websites I've seen. So you might pay a facilitator their facilitation fees and then pay the service center separate as well. It's going to save some money if you do book. Typically, if you book through a facilitator versus a service center, it can save a little bit of money there as well. But each facilitator has kind of their own different ways that they operate.
So how long does it last?
So the journey itself, depending on the dose, can be between 5 to even 7 or 8 hours.
Whoa. Okay. Yeah. Day trip.
Yeah.
So someone with substance abuse, say, issues comes and is it reasonable for them to expect to have a 7 or 8 hour experience in one day and be fine? Is that possible?
I mean, it's possible. absolutely. I'd say anything is possible.
Hmm.
I would say, though, that it's really important to emphasize that integration is a huge piece of this.
Say more.
Yeah, so psilocybin, to me, I look at it as a tool and a teacher, right? It's kind of like I get my homework, my soul work to do, my lessons here that I'm working on and learning. And so it's great if you do a journey, but if you don't continue that work and really kind of show your teachers that you're being a good student, it's not going to work for you. You still have to do the work.
Well,
But
how was that?
it
Okay.
opens up these possibilities and potential for you that could make it easier for you to make those changes. Say, before perhaps there was a lot of resistance and you just felt stuck, and now there's more wiggle room, right? And so you have, I would say, a better chance of implementing some of those things that were really challenging beforehand.
So give us an example of like what's some of like the work you're describing that you want to keep doing in order for this to have lasting, profound positive effects and change for you.
Yeah, so I mean, that would be, again, continuing to go inward too after the journey. So journaling, maybe you talk to a therapist, maybe you do more yoga and sound baths. Like, it depends on the person. So we really try to find what resonates with each person so that it could be sustainable long term. Because if I tell someone, hey, yoga's great, you should do this. If they don't like yoga, it's not going to stick, right?
Right. Right. Wow, that's really fascinating. So what do you have any stories? Like, can you tell us one like success story, something maybe uh, like a really wild, whoa, I can't believe that happened example. Anyone
For
you've
me
worked with?
personally, or with a client,
Well,
or
no, you are a success story. So how about a client one? Yeah.
yeah. I mean, just last week I had a session with a person, and he just felt really stuck before. And he had a lot of trauma, a lot of childhood trauma, things like that too. And he said after the session that was the first time he ever felt like he really let go and surrendered in his whole life.
Wow.
To me, it was just so beautiful. He just the release, like, even you could even see it in his face, like all of his muscles. There's like a little bit of a glow for people too after a journey. It can be very anti-inflammatory as well, so I tend to feel like superhuman. So that can be nice, but you can see the shifts. You can even hear the shifts in the tone of their voice. They're subtle, but yeah, it can be quite profound. And the studies show that well, I think over 70% of psilocybin studies show that participants describe their experience as one of the most meaningful and spiritually significant events in their life. Comparing it to even like the birth of a child.
Holy moly.
So it can be very profound. Now, it's not always easy, right? It can be very challenging, but to me, it's a lot easier than going about day-to-day life, trying to change things on maybe a conscious level, on more of a superficial level. That to me is a lot more frustrating, right? Because if you don't get those results, it's, again, banging pots and pans.
So has it ever gotten sketchy? Has anybody ever like freaked out? And you gotta talk them off the ledge?
That's really where the prep comes in. I personally haven't, knock on wood, I haven't had any issues like that. Ayahuasca is very different. Of course, ayahuasca, when you facilitate, you also drink. And so it makes it a lot more challenging as well.
Drink?
Luckily, with psilocybin, in the Oregon model, we're not taking psilocybin at the same time as the client. We're really there to hold space
Oh,
and
I
support
see. Okay,
them.
gotcha. When you said drink, you meant drinking the Iowa.
Drinking the ayahuasca, yeah. So don't worry, your facilitator is not tripping at the same time you are.
That's, that's comforting. That is comforting.
Yeah.
That's a minor detail. Yeah, thanks for articulating that. So yeah, but what are you doing? Like, I mean, if it's 8 hours, that's who you're working.
Yeah. Yeah, so it takes
Because
a
there's
lot
no,
of
you don't get a break.
I take, little breaks to go to the bathroom or grab a
Yeah.
snack. I basically just make sure my energy is good in them. So if my stomach starts growling, I leave the room. I might have a service center rep come in if needed, but usually the clients are okay. And
Yeah.
sometimes like to have just a little break to adjust and
Well,
think.
so what's this facility like? Is it just a room? You're sitting in a closed room? You know,
Yeah, so all the service centers are different. Some have just a single room. Some are in like a renovated old house. The one of the ones that I'm operating out of right now is actually an old law office. And so it has beautiful like wood throughout the building, and the owner painted the colors are just great, like all natural, like greens, and there's plants everywhere. The most comfortable pillows and blankets and couches. So most of the journey rooms have a couch you can lay on with just tons of pillows, soft blankets. They even have weighted blankets too. So if someone does have a little bit of anxiety, that can feel comforting to wrap them up with a weighted blanket. They even have oversized teddy bears. So if you want to like cuddle or snuggle something, that can feel nice.
has anybody ever requested to go like on a walk, like outside?
Yes, you're not allowed to leave the service center. Some
Okay.
service centers do have outdoor premises, but for most people, it's again like not the same as recreational. You're not going to want to go like party in the woods with music and walk around. Like it's very inward. Most people when I'm helping them to the bathroom, it's kind of like they got their sea legs, right? So it can feel good to stand up. Some people like to stretch a little bit, but for the most part, you're reclined with usually an eye mask, and just listening to the music. You might be wrapped up in your blanket with all your pillows. Some people bring some memorabilia, things like that. There's a altar table in the room as well. So if crystals resonate with you, or you want to bring pictures of loved ones. I've even had people bring in, a dog toy, things like that, that just help make them feel comforted in the space. So that's kind of a nice setup. I bring fresh flowers and special lighting, things like that. We have snacks and things provided at the service center too. So as you are ending your journey, it can feel really nice to get a little nourishment in your stomach because you're usually fasting beforehand.
Oh, are you?
Yeah.
For how long?
Usually at least 3 hours
Oh,
before, but
okay.
some people, because the service center opens at 9, they want to get there at 9, so they might just kind of wake up and head over. Depends on the person. We kind of work through that during the prep.
So is it like, have you ever been silent? Like, have you had someone, now do you call them clients or
I
patients?
usually call them clients, yeah.
Like, Have
Not
you ever
patients, not a doctor or anything like that.
have you ever had a client that just wanted silence?
No. In
No.
fact, I've gotten a lot of great feedback on playlist. I curate a playlist. Sometimes I can spend 2 to 3 hours just on one person's playlist. And I nerd out on this part because I'm also trained in sound therapy.
Oh.
So I find it really nice. So for example, with my background in sound therapy, I can incorporate some of the elements I know there that can support the person. So if they've perhaps had a lot of trauma in the past, usually bringing in some more water sounds and that kind of stuff can be very cleansing for the person. Or if they're struggling with breast cancer, we bring in violin. That can be really helpful. So it's all backed by research, but I don't nerd them out with the research part. Usually people just say, I love the music. So I take that as ultimate compliment because I put
That's
everything into
awesome.
that.
That is so, I'm glad that came up. I'm so glad that you shared that. I didn't know. What are you not trained in, Cate? I mean, what seriously, what are you not trained in?
Well, and I
Well,
send the playlist afterwards too, and that's a helpful part of integration because you ask, like, what are some things people might do? Well, some people might find a song that they really loved on the playlist. They might listen to that when they meditate, or just to tap back into some of those experiences. I've even had people listen to their playlist while they're journaling about their experience. It can kind of go, oh yeah, this happened, and oh yeah, that felt so good, and it really just helps everything sink in on a deeper level.
weren't weren't you recently in one of the world's most famous golf magazines?
Golf Digest,
Yeah.
yes.
Why? That's amazing.
Yes,
Like, how'd that happen?
they wrote an article about how basically more athletes, particularly golfers, but even Aaron Rodgers, are exploring psychedelics, particularly psilocybin and even ayahuasca, to improve their performance
Hmm.
mentally, physically. even release some of those emotions too, that are those limitations to really feeling better and more confident in their endeavors.
Wow. Golf Digest. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's
I
really
mean,
cool.
I wouldn't have predicted that.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know?
and I'm in touch with Robin Carhart Harris, who's one of the top neuroscientists and researchers, really in this psychedelic renaissance, as we call it.
Cool.
And so we're also putting together some funding to do some research on microdosing for golfers. So I'm really excited about that. And we'll, of course, include my partner, Jeff, with that too.
Yeah. Right on. Microdosing for golfers. All right. So you mentioned it before. Let's mention it again. Prismbend.com.
Prismbend.com.
That's the best way for people to reach you and learn more.
Yeah, I'd say just submit the info through my contact form. And there's options too for social equity plans. So if someone can't afford services, there's some funding right now through a psilocybin access fund. So they have the potential to get some of their sessions covered. Anything pretty much except for the psilocybin product, potentially some of the service center fees as well. But it's a great help for people if they are in financial need.
So just to clarify the investment, is it typical that people come once and then never
Yeah,
get?
so a lot of my clients, or most of my clients, I would say, are coming from elsewhere in the world. And so a lot of them ask about doing 2 sessions in a week, especially if they've never had a psychedelic experience before.
Okay.
It can be nice to, I mean, Bend's the most beautiful place. I just love it. A lot of people want to move here after they visit, so just be warned.
That's good.
It's a great place to spend a week for a vacation, especially a self-care wellness vacation. And so some people are requesting now, hey, can I do 2 journeys in a week? And we might start out at more of a low dose, just to get them comfortable of being in an altered state. And then perhaps the next journey will be more of a moderate or regular dose.
Gotcha. Awesome. Prismbend.com. Cate, thank you for sharing all of your wisdom and experience with the Tough Talks tribe. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Whoops. No, I don't want to end that. I want to stop recording. Fascinating stuff, huh? So yeah, if you've got any interest, look her up, prismbend.com. I will say this about Cate: she is when she invests herself into something, she is nothing short of all in. So I mean, when she commits to something, she becomes an expert, and she is an expert of many things. So thanks for tuning in as always. And as I said in the introduction, you know, the reason that I was interested in having Cate is because so interested in having her now is because of all the unnecessary suffering that we create for ourselves, right? You know, and this like medicine, I don't know if she calls it medicine, but the substance, you know, psilocybin. I have not had a psilocybin journey yet. And everyone that I have spoken to who has said phenomenal things about the experience. I'm sure that's not always true, but I haven't heard anyone say that they had a bad experience. In fact, it's the opposite. It's like she said, it's like life altering. So, prismbend.com. All right. Until next time, create miracles.